All right, are we ready for the next question?
Question from the 6 Steps to Slim community. I am back at work and feeling stressed. My brain keeps telling me to eat. I'm trying to fight it. Why does this happen, and does anyone else feel like this?
All right, so I'm back at work and I'm feeling stressed. My brain keeps telling me to eat. I'm trying to fight it. Why does this happen? And does anybody else feel like this? And yes, I remember this. This was a question in a post into the 6 Steps to Slim community by a member. Back at work now, for most people in most ways here in the UK, isn't it? This lady's back to work, changing routine, changing structure, a switch up on habit. She's feeling the stress of back to work too. Maybe work's a little bit tough at the minute, trying to get things back on track or on track. Makes sense, doesn't it? And her brain's telling her to eat. Does anybody else feel like this, and why does it happen? So my first point would be yes. Not everybody, because people are different, but this is a massive problem that people struggle with across the vast swaths of the Western world. This was evident inside the 6 Steps to Slim community by the just tens and tens and tens of comments below of different people, individual members, commenting back to this lady, talking about their experiences with stress eating, emotional eating, what's happened in the past, what they're doing now, how they might be managing it, how they've struggled, how they might be successful now. So yes, this is very common across people. It's natural to want to stress eat for a number of reasons, literally genetic and environment, nature and nurture. It's coming at you from all angles. It's somewhat built into our brains and bodies to want to stress eat. Humans have been around on Earth for maybe 300,000 years or maybe even longer, and throughout this time life has been a struggle for survival, and still is for a huge amount of humanity. You know, in the past, if you know a little bit about anthropology or ancient human history, which I know a little bit, only a little bit, but there's been 5 major ice ages in the past throughout human history. This means people were born cold and they died cold. You just slip and slide through life until it's over. You can't grow nothing, and you don't see many people, populations are low, and hunger is a real difficult thing. So in these times, throughout most of humanity, throughout these ice ages and struggling times and disease and famine, etc., it would have been good for survival to eat a lot of food, store a lot of body fat that keeps you warm during ice ages, and its calories in case you can't find or have access to any food in the future, so it keeps you alive in a number of different ways, and then hide. So is it any wonder then, you are genetically primed, is it any wonder then that when you feel stressed, sometimes what you want to do is eat and hide? You want to stay in bed or stay at home and surround yourself by food. You want to stay where it's safe when you can feel like there's stressful times coming. It's old habits and old genetics and old wiring just playing out in a new world and in a new way. Secondarily, stress is also normal. All animals, maybe I don't know about all animals, but all mammals for sure definitely feel stress. You've seen wild animals before. You've seen maybe a wild rabbit, or even maybe a house cat that doesn't know who you are, and when they see you, they freeze. And if you move, they just dart for it, don't they? That's what wild animals do. And you, as a human, essentially, you might be civilized, but you're also an animal too. You might not be a wild one, but you still have the instincts, and we still are mammals and animals, and we do still have stress responses there to keep us alive. This is why change scares us, because right now you're alive. Anything different to what's now, unsure. Unsurety and uncertainty, not the best for survival. So this is why we have these survival instincts built into us. So all animals, all mammals feel stress. So we can't get away from this. Humans feel stressed. You are going to feel stressed. There's no way you can get around this. You can't just live a non-stressful life, I suppose, unless you become some kind of Buddhist monk where they try and give up absolutely everything to not feel stress. They try to feel nothing, essentially. But I don't know about you, but I'd like to live a life, and I'd like to experience some things. And along with experiencing some things and living a life, stress is going to occur. You know, if you do things and you try things, which I hope you do, you're going to experience some stress. There's going to be ups and downs. There is. You can't get around this. So if you are going to feel stressed, you shouldn't at least feel bad for that. This is why everybody feels stressed. So you shouldn't, if you feel bad for feeling stressed, then you're just feeling bad about a feeling that's bad, and then it's just compounding negativity. So at least release yourself from that and understand that it's not even a human thing to feel stressed. It's a completely normal thing to feel stressed. It's actually there as a protective mechanism for your survival. It's actually useful, and you'd probably be doing worse without it. However, psychology also dictates, it's classic Freudian psychology, that humans move towards pleasure and away from pain. So it's also not your fault that you want to escape stress. That's also part of your natural instinctual wiring. We all just want to be happy, don't we? We all just want to live a good life. So when we feel stress or when we feel negative emotions, we try to move away from the things causing them, or de-stress or distract in some way for the brain. One way that does this is by changing the hormones that are playing out inside the brain and changing what's going on inside the brain, because stress is actually a physical thing as well as a sort of psychological thing. Stress has physical impacts on the body. It releases a hormone called cortisol. So a way of fighting stress is to, I don't know what the exact word would be, but fight against, maybe, or I don't know, give some kind of opposite impact and effect of the stress feeling, give a positive feeling and try and maybe overpower the negativity with positivity. That would be distracting from the feeling, wouldn't it? So we try and get powerful, positive hormonal feelings, hormones in the brain to escape away from the stress. One way that we do this is dopamine hits. Dopamine is a pleasure hormone. So when we feel stressed, it's not even really the food that you're looking for. You know, what you're looking for when you feel stressed and you turn to food is you're looking to feel better. One of the ways of feeling good is to eat food, isn't it? Again, it's naturally wired, so again, it's not your fault that food makes us feel good. We're supposed to, as humans and as mammals and animals, search for and seek out food, because without it, you'll die. So your brain is naturally wired to seek out and search for and love and consume, especially high calorie, which is really good for survival in most of the time in the past, like we've said, food. So this is all natural wiring. And especially, again, nature nurture, if you've been training your brain that you love food, but if you've not been eating foods you don't like for your entire life, which I assume you've not been, if you've been eating foods that you actually enjoy, you've probably been enjoying your meals and you've been enjoying food and you've been getting good feelings from food for a long time. So then when you feel stressed and you want a good feeling, your brain, like a, I don't know, diagram, like a spider diagram, suggests a whole host of ways that you could feel better. And food is one of them. It's correct. It'll give you a dopamine hit. If you eat something extremely sugary and fatty, like a mixture of these things, like crisps or chocolate or brownies or ice creams, these are mixtures of sugars and fats together, it's going to light up the pleasure center of the brain. It's going to release dopamine. It's going to overpower that cortisol hormone, and you will feel better, at least for a moment. We all know that long-term stress eating doesn't work, don't we? You don't have to be told because you've tried it. We all know that we can't chew away our problems, essentially. Eating, if you've got body fat loss goals or weight management goals, which I know you do, because that's why you're even watching to or listening to this podcast / video, then you're achieving one goal, which is to feel better right now, by directly hampering and hindering one of your other goals, which is to feel healthier and happier as well, I suppose, now and later, isn't it? So you're achieving one thing by hurting another, so it's not actually helping, which is why we feel the stress of the overeating. If somebody doesn't have body fat loss or weight management goals or anything like this, and they just don't care what they eat, which again, I know this is not you, but if somebody didn't care what they ate, then maybe stress eating would work. Maybe they'd just feel good from eating the food. Maybe it would distract from it for a short amount of time. The pleasure's very fleeting, but it's definitely there. And then maybe it would de-stress them a little bit, and then they wouldn't feel negative from it. But if it's us, we've got body fat loss goals and weight management goals at least, and health goals at least, don't we? So if we're hurting that just to feel better now, that's why we get those negative feelings after, we think, oh, I shouldn't have done that, because you know that's not what you really wanted. So what we need in this situation then is, number one, a level of understanding that stress is normal. Stress is going to come up in your life. It's going to come for you. That's not your fault, and you can't get away from it or around it. So then what we need then, well, I suppose, just to go back to that point a sec, the second part of understanding we need is that you'll also want to escape from this stress and distract and de-stress and get away from it. So then the second point is that we need to find ways of coping and dealing with the stress that are helpful and not harmful. if you're turning to food, this is harming your other goals, and it's harming, maybe if it's taken too far, your physical health. It's harming your physical and mental health to try and cope with stress with that specific tool. It's one way that gives you a dopamine hit, but there are others. So the more that you can turn to other methods, the less you'll try to focus and grab at food or grab at any one of them. So what we need to do is have and I don't know what it is for you, but have a whole host and a list of ways that you feel good, things that make you happy. And then try and turn to them. It's good to have a list because you can't always think clearly when you've got super stress on the mind, especially when you're trying to avoid food. But if you know or you practice turning to, and it is a practice, you won't be perfect, but you will get better over time. You practice turning to other things that make you feel good that aren't food, because they do exist. There are other things that make you feel good that aren't food if you practice turning to those things instead and work on them. So whether you talk to a friend, you talk to your coach, talk to a family member, maybe you go for a walk, maybe you play music, maybe you listen to music, maybe you put on a film you enjoy, maybe you run a bath and put some candles on, maybe you watch something on Netflix, maybe you exercise and burn it out, catharsis style. Whatever you do, whatever makes you feel good, whether it's knitting or whatever it is, if you can practice turning to those things too, the stress will pass, the craving will pass too, and you'll feel better, but you'll feel double better. You'll have compounded positivity because you'll feel better because the stress, you'll have coped with it in a way. Hopefully you deal with the stress as well, and this is not for this video, but that's a differentiation. There's ways of dealing with stress and actually managing the problem, and then there's ways of coping with the feelings of the problem. Today we're talking about coping, but you'll have coped with it in a positive way, and then the stress will pass. You will have dealt with it as well, hopefully. And then also you'll have the positivity of doing the right thing, and your body weight management will be going good, your health will be on point, your weight management will be on track, and you'll have compounded positivity rather than negativity. It just takes a little bit of practice and a little bit of effort. So I hope that makes sense anyway. Thank you for listening to the video. If you like the video, please give it a little like, please follow or subscribe to the page if you've got any comments or questions, just as we've read out this question here and then got back with an answer. Hopefully you found some positivity, some education or some motivation or something from it. Please give us a little like or a comment, and I hope to see you and speak to you again soon.